Hello, welcome to part one of my presentation, Creating a Welcoming, Productive, and Civil Learning and Working Environment. My name is Lynn Gregory, and I am the Personal Counselor on MCC's Bedford campus. As you can see on this slide, I have another title, Student Affairs Consultation Liaison. This refers to my consultation work with Associate Vice President of Student Affairs, Pam Flaherty, and MCC's faculty and staff. You may also know me because I facilitate weekly meditation on Wednesdays. This is now happening remotely and will start the second week of classes in September. I hope you can join me sometime. As I said, this is part one of a two-part workshop. Part two will be a live presentation through Zoom where we will review various scenarios that you may come across in your work as a student leader. These scenarios are all based on situations that have really happened at MCC. This PowerPoint presentation will give you background information to inform your group's discussion and the role play you will create together. I hope you find these slides informative, and I look forward to seeing you on Zoom for part two. These are the learning outcomes for part one and part two of my workshop. Take a minute and read through them now. Hopefully you already know that MCC has a lot of great resources for students. As a student leader, you are in a unique position in your frontlines work with students to help connect them with the support services they may need to be academically successful. I'm going to talk about two of those services now. First, we've got personal counseling. I'm one of two personal counselors at MCC, and we provide free, short-term personal counseling services to enrolled students. Right now, we are offering these services through a secure and confidential telehealth platform called DoxyMe. It's important to note that students do not have to be in crisis to meet with a personal counselor. We counsel students about a wide range of issues, and it's always better to come sooner rather than later. As a student leader, you may notice a student is having a hard time, or they may tell you about difficult things they are dealing with. You can help raise students' awareness of personal counseling services with a simple, "Did you know MCC has free personal counseling?" and giving them our information. Maybe even saying something like, "We all need help sometimes." And remember that goes for you too. Employees are not eligible for personal counseling, but because you are students too, you can take advantage of this service if you ever feel that you need someone to talk to. MCC also offers employees an EAP called LifeWorks if a student employee would prefer to connect with a counselor outside the college. One more resource I'd like to highlight. Any student who may be concerned about their mental health can also choose to take one or more free, anonymous online mental health screenings for depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and more. We call these screenings a checkup from the neck up. These screenings and more detailed information about personal counseling can be found on our website at the link provided in this slide. Finally, the other part of my job is that consultation piece I mentioned earlier. I work with staff, faculty, and administrators on how best to address student behavior that can be disruptive or concerning. This training is an example of the consultation work I do. I'll say a little bit more about that in a later slide. The other student support service I want to mention is Disability Support Services, or DSS. These services are for students with documented disabilities, either physical, psychiatric or emotional, like depression or anxiety, neurological, attentional, like ADD or ADHD, and or learning disabilities. Often when we think of someone with a disability, we think of a person who uses a wheelchair or someone who may be blind. But most of the students registered with DSS have what we call invisible disabilities. While you can never ask a student if they have a disability, sometimes a student may disclose that fact to you by saying, "Oh, my anxiety is really bad today," or "I can't focus because I forgot to take my ADHD medication," or maybe "I had an IEP in high school." Just like with personal counseling, comments like these can open the door for you to say something like, "Did you know that MCC has a department called Disability Support Services that can help you?" Usually I'd provide flyers for you for both personal counseling and disability support services, but now the best thing to do is to provide the student with the link to the website, or even offer to help them connect personally with one of the DSS staff members or personal counselors. The Student Assessment and Intervention Team, otherwise known as SATE, is a team of campus professionals who work to support students and to keep the campus running smoothly and safely. Associate Vice President of Student Affairs Pam Flaherty and I co-chair SATE. As student leaders, you are in a unique position to identify at-risk students. In the third bullet on the slide, I've listed some of the types of concerns that may be reported to SATE so that we can intervene and offer assistance. MCC employees use the small incident form to communicate with SATE. If you file a report based on your work with a student, you would file an employee small incident form after consulting with your supervisor. This year, we now have the student small incident form. If you or any other student is concerned about another MCC student and would like to let SATE know, this is the form you would use. If you would like to know more about SATE and who is on the team, check out the SATE webpage at the highlighted link. Listed on the site are important cell phone numbers for key people, including Vice President Pam Flaherty and Dan Martin, the Director of Public Safety. I'd also recommend taking a look at SATE's Care Guide for more information about key college resources and protocols. Now I'm going to shift away from resource and referral information so I can highlight two important skills for creating that welcoming, productive, and civil environment with your students. These skills are good communication skills and self-awareness. In your student leader training, you either have or you will do additional training on these important skills, but I ask you to consider the points listed on this slide as you prepare your scenario role plays. In remote work, it is even more important to communicate clearly and concretely and to listen carefully at all times. Strong communication skills combined with keeping your own emotions under control can help you get through any challenging situation you may encounter. Consider this acronym, SOAR, and how it might apply when you are discussing your scenario and creating your role play. The last few slides of this presentation are about safety, emergency, and crisis situations. Please know that these situations are extremely rare. My purpose in sharing this information is not to make you nervous, but to empower you so that you will have important knowledge and resources, especially since we will not all be working on campus together this fall. If any of this information is very upsetting for you, please do what you need to take care of yourself, including stopping the presentation. The first thing I want to recommend is that you gather the information I've listed on the slide for any student meeting you participate in. This slide contains just a few basic but important tips to review for suicide prevention. I recommend that you view the brief video, which is about 3.5 minutes, before going to the next slide. This video is targeted towards parents, but it includes vital information about suicide prevention for anyone who is in a helping role. In the rare case that a student gives you the impression that they may be thinking about ending their life, or if they make any specific reference to thinking about suicide, it is essential that you take them seriously. References to wanting to end it all, statements showing extreme guilt like, "I'm a terrible person," or expressions of hopelessness such as, "What's the point? Things will never get better," should all be followed up with gentle, clarifying questions and an attitude of compassion. Do not be afraid to ask directly if a student is thinking about ending their life, as hard as it may be to ask this. The answer is yes. Follow up with the other questions on this slide. It is important to remember that many people think about suicide but have no intention of acting on those thoughts, so they may not need urgent intervention. The next slide offers some resources to share with any student you are concerned about. If a student has stated they are suicidal and they are in immediate physical danger, instruct them to call 911. If a student is in crisis or at risk, but not in immediate physical danger, and they want to talk to someone immediately, they can contact any of the 3 remaining resources. All are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The Massachusetts Emergency Services Crisis Line will connect the student to their local crisis team so they can evaluate them and help them get the help they need. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is a nationwide resource, and students can also chat through the hotline's webpage. Crisis Text Line is another resource for students who may prefer to text instead of talk. I recommend that you always have these resources handy in case you need to share them with a student. After dealing with a crisis or a situation of concern, it's important to let your supervisor know what happened. They will help you decide what kind of documentation needs to be done. They may choose to reach out to me or Marilyn Yo, the personal counselor at the Lowell campus, to share information about the situation and so we can follow up with the student. You may choose to reach out to one of us directly yourself for support and to process what happened. Because we are working remotely, email is the easiest way to reach me or Marilyn. If you leave a message for us at our phone numbers, we will see that on our email. The information on this slide is primarily for any student who may be working on campus. I recommend that all students put the numbers for public safety in their cell phones. Here are the instructions for part 2 of my workshop. You will receive the scenarios, your group assignment, and the Zoom link for part 2 from Noreen or Christine. Thank you for taking the time to view and listen to this presentation. I know that it was a lot of information to take in. Please jot down any questions you have for me for when we meet live via Zoom. I look forward to part 2 of our workshop together.